Hello and welcome back to our partner spotlights. Thanks for joining us, and special thanks to Dr. Jennifer Stoll for joining us. She's joining us from across the country and a few time zones away. So thank you so much for being here, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I didn't really introduce you too well so far, but Jennifer is the principal at Stoll Sports Strategies, and kind of the way that her and I connected over time and over the years is she oversees all of the research associated to Sports ETA, which is the Sports Entertainment and Travel Association, formerly the National Association of Sports Commissions. So she's got comprehensive knowledge, a big breadth of knowledge in the sports tourism industry. And Jennifer, I have you on kind of today because I had specific interests in the State of the Industry report that just came out just a couple of months ago, and you all really did a fabulous job. I know it was a combination of a few folks, but you kind of oversaw that project. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, the brief overview of the state of the industry for 2019, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was interesting when I came to be involved with Sports ETA and the research aspect. It really gave us an opportunity. We hadn't reported a state of the industry or issued a state of the industry report since 2017. So it gave us some time to really whiteboard, okay, if we could assess the impact of sports related travel across the country more comprehensively than it's ever been done before, what would that look like? And in the past, we had reported some self-reported by our members, their spending numbers and things of that nature. I think in the industry, we all know that there's so much more to that. So we were able to sort of architect this comprehensive report that looked at economic impact of sports. It looked at job creation generated by sport-related travel. It looked at tax revenue generation by sport-related travel, and really put forth with our friends at Northstar and Tourism Economics, who did a lot of the analysis for us. It really allowed us to put forth the most comprehensive report on the impact of sports-related travel in the history of the association, quite frankly.
And I've read some of the report, and I've heard you speak a little bit about it on the Sports Travel podcast, which also gave a really good overview. So the big number, like the headline number that you have there is why sports tourism matters is because it's $45.1 billion in sports travel related spending. So can you talk a little bit about what makes up that number?
Yeah, so the 45.1 billion, I mean, we always knew it was a big number, but we had never really quantified it as in detail as we had in this report. And 45.1 billion, that's sports related travel, and that excludes professional sports and regular season collegiate sports. So you're talking about those amateur sporting events, the bread and butter of our industry that really is people recruiting and are building sporting events in their community for the purpose of economic impact. And that's the direct spend associated with that. And what we often kind of lose sight of is when we're measuring economic impact, we've also got some induced spending that comes with that and indirect spending. So if you look at indirect, are those things in your community that are inputs into you hosting or producing a sporting event. Then you've got the direct spend associated with the travelers coming to your community. And then one step further is that induced spending, or kind of what happens because that money was spent in your community. And that could be something like, youth sport tournament participants go to local restaurants and attractions and they spend money there, and the owners of those organizations pay wages to their staff, and their staff goes and in turn spends that into the community. So that 45.1 is really focused on while those travelers are there. If you look across that induced, indirect, direct, and induced, you're really at like 103 billion for the industry.
Well, even when I found out that you're not taking into account like regular season collegiate sports. It's mostly focused on just those championship sports that come. I was like, oh my gosh, because there's so much. We in the Lehigh Valley, we have a lot of colleges and universities, and during the year, I mean, just that regular season play generates a lot of business. So when I think, oh my gosh, that's not in this particular study, then your
Yeah.
number's pretty conservative and it's already large. So
Yeah, it is. And I mean, there was a very specific thought process that went into that. And we wanted to be specific to say, hey, we really want to analyze the things that are here because of the efforts of the sports tourism industry versus, say, regular season competition that takes place at your local college or university, irrespective of the influence of your DMO or your sports commission.
right. And I know we talked a little bit offline before this recording started about how DMOs like us and around the country and world kind of have to shift their measures of success. We talked about how economic impact has always been kind of the top level way that we measure our success and share those numbers with our local constituents. But, you know, we've kind of shifted to more of an advocacy role to show what sports tourism brings, not only to our local economy with that impact, but we're talking about job creation too. So can you talk a little bit about, you know, in this study you highlighted job creation and more so of that quality of life aspect?
Yeah, I mean, you're hitting on two really important aspects of it. And the study revealed that nearly 740,000 jobs, full-time equivalent jobs, so where there's part-time or seasonal or interns, those were converted into full-time equivalency jobs. The 740,000 jobs created due to the work in the sports travel specific industry, and the implications on other sectors of economy, particularly in our circumstance, they call it the FIRE segment, which is finance, insurance, and real estate, have a huge impact derived from sports-related tourism. So it is creating jobs in the community. And when it comes to, you know, why people work in a community or live in a community, it has a lot to do with their sense of place and quality of life they perceive from the community. So you take Lehigh Valley, for example, and there are aspects of that community that are unique draws. So our role in sport tourism in a lot of circumstances is really a conduit of exposure for the broader community development. What I mean by that is, you know, we're exposing people to a community that might not have otherwise been there if that, you know, it hadn't been on the schedule that day for their son or daughter's youth sport tournament, for example.
And that's
So
what we like to think that
yeah.
that it could be the sporting events could be the first time that someone experiences our destination. Like you said, it was never on their radar before, but they come here and we hope that we can deliver on a fabulous experience, not only on the field, but that, you know, with the attractions that they go to, the restaurants they eat, that they have a great time. They'll come back to the tournament next year, but then they'll make a trip, you know, throughout the year to participate in some other things, and it just exposes them more. So it's just a great way to gain a new traveler or visitor, gain a new referral, and hopefully, you know, build that retention.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's repeat visitation. It's a conduit of exposure for that. But I mean, the holy grail in all this is that somebody falls in love with Lehigh Valley and decides to relocate a company there or move a family there. And that is, you know, those stories might be a little bit fewer and further between, but really that mechanism of exposure and broader community development is what we're a part of here.
Definitely. So I know I mentioned sports ETA at the very beginning. Some folks who may be listening or watching may have no idea what that means. So that association has really been the leader in sports tourism as far as education, networking. You know, we talked a little bit about advocacy, and I know we're working on a few things as it relates to kind of amplifying women in sports as well. And you certainly are doing that with, you know, your projects and overseeing the research in the sports sector. So what's going on with sports ETA that maybe is new or that folks can expect to see kind of coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, Sports ETA, it's the membership association for the profession of sports tourism, and we work a lot with destinations. We also work with events rights holders. We work with industry partners and venues and suppliers that support the sports tourism industry. And 2020 obviously is a unique time, but I think it's it's been a really great opportunity as well. If you can find the silver lining in it, it has forced us as an industry who were really experiencing unprecedented growth year after year to take a step back and really kind of think about what our value proposition is back to the communities that we serve. And we've got some really cool things in the works regarding that. And part of that is that what we mentioned, that kind of expanding the definition of success.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also launching a new sports tourism learning institute that's going to house a bunch of new education content here coming up real shortly. And to parallel that, a sports tourism research institute, where we're going to be diving more in depth into some of the things that we're talking about today. And really, that's a tool for advocacy for our membership. You look at the state of the industry report, that was for 2019. So those numbers were like awesome, right?
Right, off the charts, yeah.
Yeah, 45.1. And at first, when 2020 happened, we were like, oh no, we're sitting on all this data for 2019. But what we've really found is it's probably never had a more useful time from a benchmarking and high water mark and the ability to track recovery going forward for us. So a lot more of that stuff to come in the near future.
And we've definitely recognized, as you probably have too, during this time, people took the opportunity to educate themselves or re-educate, recertify, kind of embark on different facets maybe of their career that they didn't have a chance to learn about or hone in on. So I mentioned to you earlier, we launched a Certified Tourism Ambassador program to really provide that to our local constituents, and as a way for us to be advocates of tourism and really explain the impact that it has on our community. And it sounds like you all are doing something similar, where you're providing, another education piece for someone who may be in the sports industry already, or maybe they're not and they're looking to, further themselves, figure out a little bit more about it. So some really cool stuff you have coming through. And I just congratulate you on the State of the Industry report. It was a bear, I'm sure, to complete, and you all really did a great job covering all bases. So I do encourage anyone to hop in and take a look at that report. So Jennifer, would you like to leave us with anything else before we go today?
No, I mean, I think you covered it. I just appreciate you having me on, and hopefully this can provide a little bit more insight for folks in Lehigh Valley about what we do in the sports tourism world.
Definitely. Thanks again so much, Jennifer. I appreciate it. And we'll definitely stay tuned as to what you have coming up next.